Charles, have you ever been to Northeast England? Yes, I have. Charlito, any news about midnight? Well, you got to ask Iran Barak. There's a big team. They're working real hard. Charles, have you ever seen Auto GPT? Let's see if JJ's back up. How's your microphone, JJ?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you great. That's a good mic.
Very good. Yeah, switched it out. Auto GPT is the next thing. You can get GPT to talk to itself. It's pretty excellent. We're working on it right now, actually. Carlos got it functioning, and getting it functioning myself.
Turn down the mic a little bit. It's a little loud.
All right, just took it down 15 notches. How about that? Is that better?
Yeah, a little bit more.
Okay. All right, how about now? How's that sound?
That's perfect. There you go.
Okay,
All right,
great.
So let's talk about Auto GPT. Tell me everything you know.
So Auto GPT is a project that a couple people contributed to. It's on GitHub. It's publicly available. It's free. I think there's 80 contributors right now. It's very easy to install. You just run a Python script. It's just that easy. But you can get GPT to assume two personas, one essentially proposing some routes of action, then it proposes something to do next, and then all it asks you to do is say yes or no, and then it runs. It executes the command next. It actually is an easy way for you to browse the internet using GPT right now. I know a lot of people don't have access to plugins, so this is a really nice way to kind of preview what that looks like and what that user experience is like until the rest of us get plugins on the actual ChatGPT. So very interesting application, and I highly recommend checking it out and letting us know how you're using it. Seems super interesting.
Well, you know, what's interesting is the interplay of how GPT is being used on itself. And that really is the most interesting part, I think, of how AI is evolving. Is I've read several papers now where the AI is reflecting upon its own answers and asking itself, did I actually answer that correctly? And in many cases, the AI is actually able to catch its own mistakes and say, oh, I've made a mistake. Actually, let me go and fix that.
That's right. So the paper you're referring to, there's one is called Reflection with an X, so reflection. And the other one that I saw that was very interesting in that same video is DARA, so Decider and Researcher. The set of prompts that they have in that paper are outstanding. I think there's a series of 16 prompts in which the physician or the physician's assistant puts in a set of medical notes, and then GPT will use that to propose a course of action, but then a second persona within GPT, the decider, takes that initial plan and comes up with improvements to it. So it's very interesting. You can get GPT to kind of check the work, propose improvements, different prescriptions and things, and it is very, very interesting. The results were preferred 9 times out of 10 if GPT had reflected on its own results. So it makes GPT-4 even better, it makes doctors even better, and the doctors seem to confirm the findings of this DARA experiment. It's very interesting. It's an academic paper.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. And actually, there's another academic paper I just read on GPT where they used it to make pseudo-sentient NPCs in a video game. You know, I bought Legends of Valor. Yeah, we've talked a little bit about Legends of Valor. You know, let's get into game design because we're both game guys, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay. So we got to talk about games. So I bought Legends of Valor years ago. And for those of you who don't know, it's a video game I played when I was a kid. And I got obsessed with it because I couldn't win the damn game. And I just kept playing it and playing it and playing it. And it became like my white whale because I got to a certain point and I just couldn't win. And then much later on, my brother actually bought the clue book for the game on eBay, and he gave it to me as a birthday gift. And I looked through like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is like kind of when the internet first started coming out. So there was no, you go to a fan site and you look it up, and there's a you had everything in the back of the day where the Prima strategy guides or these types of things. They'd actually tell you the secrets of the game. So I got the clue book and I started looking through the clue book, and the clue book basically said, oh, by the way, the game has no ending. It just keeps going after you, after you rescue the king. There's no official ending because they ran out of money, and so they just released an unfinished product.
Oh, it's tragic.
It's like, fuck you guys. I spent 10 goddamn years on this fucking game on and off, and it turns out there's no ending. So, I'm a little autistic. So I said, all right, that's it. If I'm going to buy this game and finish the fucking thing. And so eventually I tried to find the IP owners, and this is like the King's Tut's tomb of video games. Apparently, several of the people that worked on it died just mysteriously. And so,
Incredible.
and then I started reaching out to people in LinkedIn and everything. And I was like, can we talk about Legends of Valor? Like, oh no, we can't talk about Legends of Valor. So it's like hushed tones and things like that. So eventually I found the person who owned the IP, who inherited it through an estate. And she sold it to me. And I bought it all outright. There was really no good source code or anything to work with. But what was really interesting about Legends of Valor is it was one of the first, if not the first, open world 3D games, and it came out originally in DOS and then Amiga, and later on it would run on, I think, it was just DOS game and Amiga, but it was actually a big inspiration for the Bethesda guys for the Elder Scrolls. I always thought to myself, this would be a really cool game to remake because it had a lot of incredible innovations for its time. For example, it had randomly generated NPCs in this 3D world, and you can go up and talk to them, and you could ask them questions. And you say, what is your name? What is your religion? What is your profession? Where do you live? These types of things. And it would actually have a dialogue tree and pick from a random array various answers in that dialogue tree. And then when I look at GPT basically now running bots, I think to myself, wow, imagine constructing Legends of Valor with that capability. Because effectively what you'd be able to do is it's almost like that game Event Zero that came out a few years ago, where you can type into the terminal and it would reply back an answer. You basically can type into the terminal, talk to an NPC, and you have like Event Zero style gameplay, but obviously with almost a sentient AI like chatbot. We're probably only about a year to 2 years away from that capability.
I do think that it holds a lot of potential for choose your own adventure type games, especially games that have a heavy text element. I mean, there's so many possibilities with making it so the NPCs actually just say novel content. It'd be great if you give it a base set of facts about the world, and then you can have more of a conversation with NPCs. Right now, since the NES days, you just talk to an NPC and it's always the same line of text, and even it just throws off your immersion. And for something like a Bethesda game or like a Skyrim or an Elder Scrolls, the whole point is immersion. The whole point is
right.
a different world. So it's truly interesting. I think we're going to see a lot of really interesting advancements utilizing AI, which just points to how valuable OpenAI and these other arbiters are going to be. Amazon announcing Bedrock today, and there's going to be a lot of competition. It's not just OpenAI and Microsoft. So.
Yeah, well, there's OpenAI, but the imitators are going to come, and within 3 years there'll be a great normalization. But the problem is they're all recursive, so they're advancing themselves not just like 10% better per year, not Moore's law better. They're advancing themselves exponentially. Like GPT-5 will probably be 500 times as capable as GPT-4, and that's like year to 2 year horizon. So it's pretty extraordinary when you think about that.
I think you were right, though. I think they're going to brand it GPT 4.5, 4.5.1, 4.5.2, just to avoid the fear of GPT-5.
Yeah, everybody's writing these letters. They're like, oh, we can't allow GPT to advance beyond GPT-4. And then Sam Altman was just at a place, I think it was MIT, and he's like, oh, no, we're not working on GPT-5. We're right now just working on improving GPT-4. It's like, so I see what you're going to do. You're going to take the GPT-5 label and make it 4.5.
It's like when Xbox just did the Xbox One and then the One X and then the One XS or something. I mean, it just got so confusing. But it's like they just love the Xbox One so much as the name, they just didn't want to let it go for like 8 years.
Right, Xbox One. That was another interesting. It's scary how many game companies Microsoft has acquired. I think they own like half the market at this point.
Well, the HoloLens and all the Xbox experience really played into their ability to deliver on, say, like defense contracts and things like that, especially in the AI work. Right. When you're talking about how would you capture a 3D object in, say, a set of images, the easiest way to come up with a database of things for the AI to be able to check against is just to have the AI photograph a 3D object from every single angle. It's they were only able to do that because they understand 3D modeling and HoloLens so well. They do kind of have a leg up. A lot of their gaming stuff is really, I think, going to help their various verticals.